Alright, so I've noticed that this game can seem to vary wildly in performance based on exactly what scene we're looking at. We have these cutscene types of scenes like we're seeing here, but we also have some combat scenes, things that are a lot more zoomed out. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you the game running at maximum settings, the very high preset, at 1080p on the GTX 1060 6GB. And rather than doing kind of an optimization video like I do a lot of times, this is going to be more of an extended gameplay video, so you can just get a good idea of the performance in this game. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is that my system here has a much better CPU and RAM setup than you typically have on a GTX 1060 system. So, you know, you'd want to explore your CPU limits and RAM limits kind of separately here.
Don't get off just yet.
Now, if you notice it using 10 gigabytes of RAM right now, don't panic. My system has 32 gigabytes of RAM, so a lot of times I believe a system will allocate more RAM than it really needs to when it's available. So I would say don't panic there. Now, the GPU memory here is currently under 3 gigabytes, which is a really good sign for anybody who has the 3 gigabyte version of the GTX 1060. Now notice that so far we had been around 120, but and I guess now it is too, but as it panned over here, we are dipping below 120. Now you'll notice it doesn't go over 120. Now I'll show you the graphics settings menu, and I don't see VSync on here anywhere, but I think the game is running VSync, and there's just no way to turn it off. So my monitor is 120 Hertz, so I believe it's just capping us at 120, and I can't go above that without finding some way to turn off the frame rate limit or VSync or whatever is on, which again does not seem to exist in the actual graphics menu. Anyway, you can see here that we are running the game at the very high settings at 1080p, and I am in DX11 mode. You should definitely be in DX11 for pretty much any modern system that I could imagine. I guess you could test out DX9, which it also has available, but I don't think that's going to be the smartest way to go. Now, I'm not going to actually listen to the conversations here because this is a performance test video, but I think here pretty soon we get into a fight. I have already played through this initial portion of the game, and I guess it didn't save my progress or something because I restarted the game and, well, it put me back here. So anyway, let's go ahead and test it out because, like I said, this gets us a variety of scenes in the game, and we're going to be able to measure our performance. And I think we've got to run a couple little errands here. We've got to give this guy his water. Gotta go get the fetch the water bucket. A lot of little fetch quest type things here. Now, I've got to say that while this game is obviously not the most graphically impressive game I've ever seen, for this style of game, which has that very top-down perspective, I've got to say that when it zooms in here, I know some of the character models, like the facial animations, and like not every line is voice acted and all of that. Like, you could nitpick a lot of stuff here. But in the actual zoomed-out gameplay, I feel like things look nice. It's nothing mind-blowing, but it looks nice. And it's also performing extremely well on this GTX 1060 at maximum settings, which is great, because then a lot of people with lower-end hardware should actually be able to play this game. Alright, it's showing us how to activate the map.
The advance party that came first said they had finished exploring.
Talking about the advance party. There's some sort of treasure we need to look for. Also, these cutscenes, you know, they add into, like, you know, depth of field and everything. So, you know, I feel like the cutscenes could certainly look worse on this style of game.
Damn it all.
So, you know, I think it's really in the characters' faces, and, you know, I wish there was maybe a higher texture option or something. Okay, now we're seeing the performance, right? There's a lot of character models on screen there. That was a cutscene, though, so I don't really mind us dipping slightly below 60 there for just a second. Okay, give me control of my character back.
Move quickly.
Alright, so let's go run in and do some combat. Now, don't judge me, I have no idea how to actually play this game. I see that I have some hotkeys, so I'm just going to mash the hotkeys and stare at the frame rate counter. I gotta get used to the right click to move that I selected here. Okay, so definitely the actual abilities seem to be the way to go. Kill a lot faster. And you know, I haven't played this much, but the combat is very satisfying. There's a lot of enemies on the screen, and the abilities on this gigantic sword do feel pretty nice. Performance here seems good, so we can tell we're definitely, you know, below the 120 FPS that we were getting on the easier scenes. But I'm not seeing any reason to believe that we shouldn't be able to just max this game out on the 1060 and in combat still maintain well above 60 FPS, it looks like. Okay, so I've got to say, you know, things seem great. I think the only other thing that I might want to try out here is, since the performance is so good, maybe we'll just actually bump this up to 1440p for a second. And I've noticed when I change resolutions that it like loses track of where my mouse pointer is until I Alt-Tab out of the game and then tab back into the game. Now I can actually click that. Also, I've noticed occasionally it's V-synced into 60 FPS even though my monitor should go up to 120. I don't know why that happens, but that has also been solved by Alt-Tab for me. Anyway, so we're doing the 1440p test here for a bit now. Looks like out here just kind of standing around in the normal world and on these basic conversation scenes. Our performance seems good enough.
Searching the surroundings.
But I'm curious if we get into any kind of more demanding scene with combat. We saw combat did great at 1080p, but it was certainly more demanding than just standing around. So I'm interested to see if we get into any combat on 1440p, if we're still going to be able to do it at maximum settings. I definitely know people who have 1060s and play at 1440p.
Make good use of that potion.
I know everything, guys. I just selected I know everything. And it's, of course, completely true. I think it's telling me about my skills, so I could learn what my skills do. Alternatively, I could just button mash them
it's best to prepare for the
in
worst.
combat. That tends to be my strategy.
This way.
I'm sure as the game gets more difficult, I would want to learn what the abilities actually do. Break down the wall. Okay, so we're getting near 60 FPS here. So far still holding above it. And remember, this is maximum settings at 1440p. I'm curious how this cutscene will go. Some of the cutscenes do seem to be more demanding, but at the same time, I don't really mind if a cutscene dips below 60. Because, you know,
traps and crumbling ceilings,
not really trying to do anything. I'll let this cutscene run for a little bit. Yeah, we're definitely dipping below 60, but not badly.
Whoa.
If I wasn't staring at the frame rate counter, I wouldn't even notice it.
Of the gods.
It's important to always stare at a frame rate counter while you're playing your games.
Regulus himself created
It helps you drive that, you know,
ever-burning light of
endless
creation.
need to upgrade your GPU, rather than just, you know, enjoy the game. Alright, cutscene performance seems to be solid, so I'm going to go ahead and hit escape key and kind of skip over that, because I know that there's going to be another combat scene coming up up this hill.
Seems like we're on the right
Like I said,
track.
I've already
Follow
done
me
this section of the
and
game.
watch your step.
I haven't tried this combat scene maxed out at 1440p though, so I'm curious how that's going to go. I think right as we get around this corner here, there's going to be some trolls.
Trolls again. We have to
It's
break
those
through their
trolls
lines.
again.
Prepare for battle.
All right, mash the attack button. Okay, we are dipping slightly below 60, but on this kind of top-down sort of game, I'm not swinging a camera around in a first-person shooter or anything. So I really think this performance is just fine. So I think even at 1440p, I don't really have any concerns about even playing it on maxed out settings. which is really cool to see. And this game is throwing a lot of enemies on the scene. I definitely see the appeal to this game. This is not the type of game I usually play, but I do see the appeal. Combat seems enjoyable. I have a feeling that actually learning the ins and outs of it and getting a actual multiplayer happening would be pretty enjoyable. Wow, that handled extremely well at 1440p. So I think I'm just going to call it here. It's not really an optimized settings video, but I'm just going to say if you got a 1060, might as well just max the game out. You're probably playing at 1080p anyway, and even if you're at 1440p, you're still holding above 60 FPS. In heavy combat, you might dip slightly below it, but seem just fine. So I don't know if there's other parts of the game that are significantly more difficult, but this, I mean, that seemed like a lot of enemies on screen and did just fine. Hope all of you have an excellent day.